U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in New Delhi to co-chair the 5th India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue, and the talks will be held between India's External Affairs Minister, Defence Minister, Secretary Blinken and Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin. Now, the dialogue was launched in 2018 to boost defence cooperation and align policy objectives in the Indo-Pacific region. And the dialogue is also expected to provide a platform for top-level discussions between the US and India. Critical bilateral and global matters will be addressed, and special emphasis will be on developments unfolding in the Indo-Pacific region as well as the Israel-Hamas war. Now, earlier yesterday, Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin also arrived in New Delhi for the talks, and the discussion will now pick up from Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's successful visit to Washington in June, as well as President Joe Biden's trip to New Delhi for the G20 summit in September. Now, the U.S. State Department's principal deputy spokesperson also stressed on developing cooperation between India and the U.S. in the realm of counter-terrorism.
Heading to New Delhi as part of the 2+2 security dialogue with Secretary Austin, and so I have no doubt deepening our security cooperation will be a topic that is discussed by Secretary Blinken, Secretary Austin, and their counterparts in the Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Defense. I will let that trip play out before we share further, but I have no doubt that cooperation, especially in the counterterrorism space, is something that will come up in areas where we can potentially deepen our partnership.
And to discuss more on this, we are now being joined by Edward P. Joseph, live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Joseph is a political analyst and a senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. Welcome to the broadcast, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
I would like to begin by asking you that it is expected that some critical bilateral and global matters are going to be addressed between Antony Blinken and in the ministerial meeting, and he will be participating this time in the 5th India-US 2+2 Foreign and Defence Ministerial Dialogue. What do you think is going to be on the agenda, according to you?
Well, in my view, of course, on the agenda, the main purpose of the 2+2 dialogue is to advance defense cooperation in particular, in addition to continue the closer alignment between the United States and India that, as your report indicated, was exemplified by the very successful state visit, a rare occasion, honor for any foreign leader, of Prime Minister Modi to the United States in June. And again, as your report indicated, President Biden's attendance at the G20 summit in Delhi in September. And so this is further proof of the advancement of that relationship, close relationship, and obviously it has China very much in the background. The interesting point here, because it connects to the report, the long report just preceding this, is that Secretary Blinken's participation in this 2+2, that's the 2+2, is the Secretary of State, the Department of State, and of course Department of Defense with Secretary Austin. What permits this is the progress that the United States achieved, as noted in your previous report, with these humanitarian corridors in Gaza, which show and demonstrate the commitment of the United States to addressing the plight of Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Please.
Sure, and I would like you to elaborate further on that. Like, can you stress and perhaps elucidate further the importance and significance of this dialogue amidst the precarious situation in West Asia that you just pointed out?
Of course, because this war that we see unfolding with, of course, terrible, horrible, and horrific suffering by Palestinian civilians, including so many Palestinian children. We know, of course, this war was launched by Hamas on October 7th with the absolutely incredible, unspeakable crimes that Hamas committed against civilians, including infants, there on October 7th, forgotten by much of the world, but not forgotten by Israelis or many Americans, most Americans, and above them all, President Biden has not forgotten this. So that's the context in which this very difficult diplomacy takes place in the Middle East, and its acknowledgement of the importance of India, quite significant, that Secretary of State Blinken would come to India at this time and continue with the commitment of the United States to come with Secretary of Defense Austin, who also is playing a critical role in getting restraint by the Israelis and giving critical advice to the Israelis about how they respond in accordance with international law and exercise their right of self-defense. So the presence of Secretary Austin, Secretary Blinken in India is really proof of India's very considerable importance in the eyes of the United States. Please.
For our viewers who have just joined in, the 2+2 dialogue between India and US facilitates review of defense and security collaboration tech partnerships to further boost India-US comprehensive global strategic partnership. And this as Antony Blinken arrives in New Delhi. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph, for joining in and giving us your insights and time.
You're welcome.